everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. We're back on GT Sport and we're back with a daily race here again. This time we're at Suzuka in the Group 2 cars, the combination that was on the other day. You can see a very competitive lobby, this one, with Zocchi in P1 there, Zed skipping P2 and TRL Org in P3 and myself in P4. Extremely hard lobby to be racing, and you can see there's some really fast drivers behind myself also. So this is going to be a hard race. Got to try and just keep it on the track and try and push as hard as I can to stay with these guys in the front. I pretty much knew that I wouldn't be able to have 100% speed at this track compared to them. Again, this isn't one of my strongest. In Group 4 cars, I'm reasonably competitive here, but in the Group 2 cars, not quite as competitive. But I really wanted to push. You see straight away from the TV replay cameras, you can see they're trying to push and get as close to them on the slipstream and try and hold on to their slipstream. We know how strong the slipstream is on GT Sport, so trying to stay with them as much as possible in the early phase of the race. As you can see there behind me, I've got an NSX which is very strong through this first sector, myself in the Lexus obviously, and we've got some cars in front of us. I think we've mainly got a Nissan in front of us and also the NSXs. So I was the only one pretty much at the front of the grid in the Lexus, you can see there. So trying to push really hard on the corners just to stay with them. It's really hard to stay with that NSX through the corners, but you can see there up front there's a battle going on for P3. Zed's having a little look on the inside and he has to brake. I brake nice and early, plenty of braking space, and then suddenly, I don't know what happened there, but his car just randomly slowed down in the middle of the corner. I don't know whether it could have been a bit of latency on the lag or what, but his car just stopped mid-corner and I pretty much had nowhere to go. So I get a 5-second penalty there, which is a bit frustrating because I couldn't really do anything. He had already slowed down enough and then just slowed down even more. So unfortunately a 5-second penalty on lap 1, but not really too worried. I've just got to keep pushing and obviously try and stay in the slipstream and try and pull away, because in general in these races you'll find that there's a certain point within the top 5 or 6 where they'll start dropping off quite a big margin from like P5 or 6 or something like that. So I just wanted to just keep pushing and hopefully I can still get a reasonable finish in this race. As you can see, they're getting very close in the braking to that Nissan in front of me, trying to hold on to it really. I should have the speed through the straights on that Nissan. However, that Nissan also is a very good car through the corners. Maybe not as quite as good as the NSX, but it's then got a little bit more acceleration than the NSX, I find. So in the Lexus, I've just got to try and hold on to it as much as possible. You can see there pushing it reasonably hard, but I didn't want to make any errors. I don't want to push that hard that I start making errors. And again, I think I may have gone a little bit too conservative on the brake bias again for the race conditions in this car. That's one thing I'm going to start doing, because you can see the way my car doesn't rotate as much as other cars through the corners. So I do need to try and get that rotation a little bit more. And like I say, I'll be doing that tutorial on brake bias at some point in the next few weeks when I get a chance to do it. So as you can see, they're pushing really hard and trying to just stay with P3 here. You can see they're very fastly driving in front. Zocchi in this class of car at this track was pretty much untouchable. He was just in a class of his own, extremely fast and consistent. So trying to stay with these guys in front was going to be a real hard task. As you can see there, P5 behind me, looks like he got a little bit of instability as he approached the braking. His rear started stepping out and just about avoided the rear of my car, which was lucky for myself, as we're going to ride on board now with myself there. You can see I had 1 on the rear bias. This is where I think I could have probably gone to 2 or 3 for some of the corners to try and help myself out in terms of rotating the car, trying to make sure I get a nice solid exit on these corners. Not really hitting the apex there, you can see missing the apex by quite a big margin, so not really hooking the corners up at this point, but just trying. This was the first race at this combination. I've done my qualifying lap, done a reasonable qualifying of I think it was a 48.3 or something like that, which was about 5-6 tenths off the top time, maybe 7 tenths off the top time. So there was obviously, I think Zocchi was right at the front in terms of his qualifying time. He's being really aggressive on them curves. You can see they're trying to get as close as they can and get back in that slipstream, but it just really wasn't possible. I just didn't have the pace, the outright pace, to stay with these guys in the front. You can see, we know how good some of these are, and it was just lacking that. Then again, it's just lacking that 3 or 4 tenths a lap. So frustrating, but I'm sure I'll eventually get there once I keep getting at this game. Definitely making progress, so it's just a case of just keep pushing and trying to get closer and closer to these top guys. As you can see there, the guy behind me managing to hold on at the moment, pretty much through the use of my slipstream. He's managing to hold on because he's getting the speed through the corners, and then down the straight he's got my slipstream so that he doesn't really lose any time. So he's in a win-win situation at this stage, because he's got the ability through the corners and then he's also got the slipstream to help him out down the straight. So I've not really got any slipstream to help myself to break him out of my slipstream, so I've just got to try and keep pushing and keep consistency. I was pretty confident that the NSX wouldn't be able to make a move on myself, because it's not obviously the fastest car in this class of car down the straights. As you can see there, I've managed to get that gap up to 1 second, so now I've just got to try and keep it consistent and try and keep pushing so that he doesn't pick up a massive amount of slipstream. You can see there it's just over a second, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to break that slipstream, and then I can just concentrate on keeping the car obviously as close to these cars in front. Obviously Zocchi already over a 3 second lead within 3 laps. Obviously he started over a second ahead already, but it just shows you like it's like that half a second a lap that he's obviously pulling out, at least half a second, probably a little bit more on some laps. And then, like I say, I think I need to start pushing a little bit harder on some of these laps. I know I can push like a couple attempts harder, but I feel there's just too much of a risk for myself at the moment in terms of doing that. I feel like if I push a little bit harder, I'm going to make errors, and at the moment I'd rather have consistency and just keep that rating going up on my driver rating. And, you know, if you make mistakes, that's when you lose your rating. So consistency can be more important than outright speed sometimes. You know, I showed it in the pre-season, the FIA. Just keeping consistency and keeping good results can get you a really solid result. I came P2 in that pre-season, so it does show you that consistency does pay off sometimes. Obviously, if you want them big results, though, you really do need to push, and that's where I need to start working on. As you can see there, P3 Z skip, trying to push really hard. You can see the aggression on his car when you're riding on board myself. You can see how his car's really being aggressive through the corners. He's trying to get as close as he can to TRL Org. Probably wants to get as close as he can before the pit stop, so that he can obviously pick up his slipstream and then try and do a bit of fuel saving to then jump him in the pits. But one thing I'll say, whenever I've raced Skip in the past, or Kip, I don't know how to pronounce his name, sorry, he generally does save a lot of fuel in the opening phase, but also TRL Org does a very similar thing. You know, at the Nürburgring we saw it in the Group 3 cars, saves a lot of fuel, and then he comes to like really pushing the final phases. You can see there Z-Kip getting so close through the hairpin on TRL Org, and it looks like he's having a little look on the left hand side. He's got a lot of speed. I found that Org probably didn't have as much speed as Z-Kip, because when I noticed it, he really wasn't pulling away as much as what I expected him to. When you look at Zocchi, he's got a little bit of a gap up ahead there, but I feel like Zocchi was probably saving a lot more fuel in the early phase compared to Z-Kip. It would have been interesting if Z-Kip would have started in P2, how much he could have put pressure on Zocchi. I think it would have been quite a good race. I'm not too sure how they were. I didn't have a race where I think they were that close in the races. I think I did 3 races in, and there wasn't really a race that I think he started in P2, so I couldn't really tell who was fastest. You can see up ahead there's been an incident. Z-Kip looks like there's been some sort of crash, and there was actually a little bit of contact between himself and Org going into the braking zone for that chicane. I think Org didn't know he was on the left hand side, and it's cost him quite a big amount of time. You see there really pushing, and unfortunately for Z-Kip that wasn't really his fault. I don't think Org meant it, so it was just one of them racing incidents that has caused Z-Kip to obviously lose a lot of time. He's now down in P5, so I've now got to really push, because I know how fast Z-Kip is. You know, we just seen it before, how he managed to pull away from me fairly comfortably, and he's obviously going to be on a charge once he gets going again. We're coming up to the pit stop phase now on lap 5. I've pulled the gap to, I've got a comfortable gap to P4. You can see there a reasonably fast driver as well in this game, a very confident driver, so I've just got to keep that gap around 1.5 seconds to P4 and hope that I've saved more fuel. I have been doing short shifting, if you would have noticed. I've been not revving as much as I probably could have done with this car. It does make sense with this car just to stop the revs a little bit short. You end up saving quite a bit of fuel when you do that, and I'm aware of that with this car now. And again, I chose this car over the NSX because I just prefer this car in terms of its feel. Although when I was racing my NSX Ghost, I did notice that the NSX Ghost was just so much faster through certain corners, and was going into the final chicane, it was about 3-4 attempts ahead. And I think the NSX Ghost I was racing when I was doing the qualifying made a mistake on the chicane. It must have made an error when I was doing that lap with that car, and that's where I caught up mainly. So it's quite, I think I would have probably been a bit faster in the NSX, probably been able to get to the 47s. So maybe I do need to just start using the NSX on certain tracks again, and start getting used to it, because it was definitely very fast through the first few sectors. You could visually see it. I just found last time I raced this track with the NSX, I found that I made errors, and I think even though I had like half the races were really good, half the races I made horrible errors that cost me big, and that's what you don't want. As you can see there, going into the pits, managed to save on 11% of fuel. P1 Zocchi on 14%. I actually expected him to have a little bit more fuel saved than that. But you can see there, the driver behind me, he's saved about 3 or 4% less than myself. I've actually saved more than him, so I was reasonably comfortable at this time. So I pretty much knew that the battle was going to be with Zed-Kip once he gets past and he's on the rear of my car. So you can see there, I underfueled slightly just to make sure, because I don't think Zed-Kip pitted the same lap as myself. So he's obviously going to be... He actually did pit the same lap. You can see there in the distance, just coming out the pits, and he just about jumped the car that was behind me. So he obviously was doing the fuel saving in that, obviously in that first set, the first split, the first 5 laps, that's enabled him also to jump that car. And now I've got to really push. You can see there visually the gap. He's going to be able to close that in with the speed that he's got on this track, especially in that Nissan. I really do need to try that Nissan here as well. I like that car when I drove it at another track. It lacked a bit of straight line speed, but I really like the feel of it through the corners again. It's got such a positive feel to when you drive it. You go really strong front end, but it's also got a lot of traction on the rear, which really will help you out, especially out the hairpin. This is a corner where I lose so much time on so often. It's this hairpin. It's when I put the power down, I spin the rear wheels up a lot, and I tend to lose 3 tenths or 2-3 tenths every lap when going through that corner. As you can see there now on the TV replay camera, you can visually see how close he's actually gained on me already. He seems to be gaining quite a bit already in these early laps, and this is where I knew I was going to have to go defensive, even though I know I've got a 5-second penalty, and he's probably only got the 1 second, because when it came up, all he got was a 1-second penalty. He's probably already got... I wasn't sure if he would have got rid of that penalty when the crash happened. He might have been able to lose that, but he could have also picked up a penalty when that crash happens. You know, they said they were going to take it out of the game when you crash, that you're given a penalty, but from my experience they haven't done that. You still pick up penalties when you lose control of the car and you're in an incident. So you can see visually he's really being aggressive. You can see there pushing really hard. I'm also pushing really hard, and you can see he's starting to gain in on me now. So the defensive skills are really going to be put through to the test in the next few laps once he's on the rear of the car. You can see up ahead TRL Org not massively pulling away. You can see there he's on 4.3 seconds ahead, and this is a good thing. When I'm not having cars around me and I can just concentrate on the driving, I wasn't losing massive amounts of times to Org, and that was quite interesting. You know, it shows that I haven't got bad speed. You can see there 4.5 seconds. It's not massively changing, so that's quite nice to see that I wasn't, you know, dropping back, because I think before the pit stop phase it was only about 3 seconds. So not losing huge amounts of times to TRL Org. Just unfortunate I wasn't able to stay in Zed-Kip's slipstream, and then with that incident that happened to them, I could have maybe picked up Org slipstream, because I think if I could have been in Org slipstream, I think I might have just been able to hold on to him in his slipstream. Zocchi was just a little bit too fast. I think he was in a league of his own, but I think that Zed-Kip was closer to Zocchi's pace than TRL Org was. So I feel like if I could have been in Org slipstream, I might have been able to hang on to it. You can see there, down to 4.4 seconds. I've not really lost anything at this stage of the race. So he could have been having to do fuel saving. I'm not too sure. We were both on very similar fuel loads as we went in the pits, so it should have been fairly equal. As you can see there now, Zed-Kip catching up at such an insane rate, and it does show you that he definitely had very good speed at this combination. As you can see, he's in touching distance that slipstream now. He's in the slipstream, and he's able to now start gaining in on me. This is the point now where I wanted to try and hold that point off for as long as possible, but he's now in that slipstream. So I've now got to just try and drive solid and not make any big errors, because if I make any massive errors, he's going to be able to get past me. As you can see, they're driving really aggressively over the chicane, and managed to nearly get him out the slipstream again, but he's just picking it up, and that was really, you know, key for him to do that, to pick that slipstream up down this straight. The Nissan isn't quite as fast as my car. You can see I'm actually still only 4.3 seconds behind Org, so I've actually gained on him since this point on the previous lap. So again, there's signs that I can push. You know, I've got the ability to be a bit faster. I've just got to start finding that little extra on every lap, and it's not, you know, I can see that Zocchi is clearly in a league of his own, but Zocchi's one of the fastest on the game, and so is Org. So to be this close, I feel is quite good. And you can see there, Zed-Kip also one of the best on the game, and I really rate Zed-Kip. I've raced him so many times now, and pretty much every time he's got a real ability at pushing the car to extreme levels, but he also has an ability to save fuel. I still remember the Group 1 race against him when he managed to not pit but maintain such a high speed. He was like, and when I watched it, it was because he was just lifting, coasting, and the way he was doing it was really I admired his skill at doing it. So you can see there, he got really close in the braking zone as I made a mistake. You can see my car go very deep into that hairpin, and now he's in the position to start putting me under a lot of pressure. I've got 2 and a bit laps to go, so I've really got to get defensive in these few laps. And even though I knew he was going to get me by the end because of the 5-second penalty, I wanted to test this out. You know, I like to, when I've got a chance of being defensive, I really do try and defend with everything I've got, because it's good practice for the FIA events that are coming up, because you know, I'm sure there'll be races when I've got to defend against very fast drivers, as you can see there. Now straight away, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to stay pretty much to the right hand side of the track. I know that that's the position you want to be on. He can go around that outside on the left, and you can see there, give him space on the left, and he really can't do that. So now I've got to really push through the chicane and attack the exit to get good speed, and I managed to do that reasonably well. So you can see there, he's not able to make that move on that at that point of the track, and now he's going to try and pick up the slipstream and have a little look at making a move into turn 1. So you can see, going defensive on that right hand side, he goes down the left hand side, so I'll get myself into the middle of the track and then just try and hit that apex nice and early and stay really tight to the apex. You can see now, it doesn't matter how slow I'm going for the apex, he can't go around the outside of me. So I'm just trying to make sure that I hold the proper lines and be in the correct place at the correct time, just so I can get on the power, and then he still can't make a move. This section, there's not really an opportunity to overtake through here. It's a really hard section to do anything, so just a case of following behind. But then again, through this corner, you need to make sure you get solid speed through there, because it is possible to get up on the inside, but again, he's too far back to even think about that move. It's a very dangerous move anyway, and I think he's got more common sense than that. He's one of the best drivers on the game. So going through to the hairpin, I had a little moment, he also had a little moment. I'm going to have to go a little bit defensive. I could see that he was looking at me, but he wasn't really close enough, and it didn't go massively defensive. As you can see there, pulling out the corner again, he gets a really good exit from that corner compared to myself. That is one area I do need to again look at, is my traction on that corner as I'm pulling away. Doesn't seem to be as good as others. As you can see there, get very close. I'm going to go to the left hand side again, going defensive and making sure he can't make a move through that corner. And now I need to ensure a really solid exit. So you can see getting on the power really early, and you can visually see I got on the power really nicely there, and it's give myself that little bit of a cushion so he can't make a move on this inside going into this really fast 130R. As you can see there, picking up the slipstream again, and he's not getting close enough, so again managing to hold it off. Now going to the right hand side of the track again, going defensive. He's again can't really do much there, so again trying to slow down on the apex a little bit there to try and give myself maximum attack on the exit. He's picked up a massive slipstream this time, and he's really hooked up at that corner, so he's going to be able to make a move now into turn 1. So I'm going to stick my car as far to that right hand side on the wall as possible, because that's where I want to be. He can't really go any, he can't make a move down the right hand side. So again, he's going side by side. He brakes early to try and do the undercut, but I'm aware of that. I stay nice and tight on the apex, ensure there's no way he can make that move, and then again on the power nice and early. And again, I've managed to cover that off for another go, and this is the final lap now, and I've just got to try and keep the car on the track and push at the same time. I'm pushing the right areas, you know, I don't want to make any errors. You can see they're pushing a little bit too hard through that corner, so I swing the car over to the right hand side. It might lose me time for that little bit, but it gives me good exit speed going through this corner, and again protects me from being overtaken going into this corner, as again it would have been risky, but you never know. Going through these corners now and again, as Skip actually outbrakes himself slightly there, nearly gives me a tap and loses the rear nearly, just about holds onto his car. You can see in the background it's snaking around as he's trying to hold on to the car, and that gives me a little bit of breathing space now going into the hairpin. So I go to try and get a nice solid exit. You can see they're taking quite a wide line this time to try and get more exit speed, and now driving on board, as you can see he's picking up that slipstream again, but he's not going to be able to make a move now into this left-hander. So I've got to try and get a nice solid exit from this corner. It's really important that I get a good clean exit from this corner so he can't make a move down this straight. You know, this is the only other opportunity he's going to have now, is pretty much down this straight or into the chicane, and this time I get another solid exit from the corner, going over to the left hand side of the track, trying to make sure he can't pick up that slipstream too much, and now going through the 130R again, and again he's not able to pick up, you know, make a move. He's not close enough, and again I'm going to stay over to the right possibly, but I see there's no need to, taking a normal line into the corner, and he's not able to make that move, and I've managed to hold him off pretty much to the end. But now I'm going to have to get rid of the slipstream. As you can see, both of us have a little moment getting on the power there. Skip nearly loses it, but I have to get rid of that penalty, so 5 seconds to get rid of. He only had a second, so unfortunately he gets me at the end. I was in P3 and it would have been a podium if it wasn't for the game giving me that 5 second penalty for something that was a very this is what I say about the game. There's no need to be giving penalties out for these type of contacts. I think it just needs to give you a strike system so that if you build up a certain amount, you're disqualified from the race, because that was a little bit disappointing, but I enjoyed defending against a very fast driver then, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was really quite intense when I was racing there and trying to defend against him. Anyway, make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you have enjoyed it. Also, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and do click that notifications button so you don't miss any future videos. And I'll be back on with more GT Sport content very soon. Thanks again for watching, everyone.